But yeah, the whole 2020 ordeal was very, very strange. It was hard to. I was still living in Lismore, which I think the best thing about living in Melbourne is at least no one knows me, so I can sort of go somewhere and cruise along. Where in Lismore, it was pretty heavily followed because, I mean, I was really the only bloke from Lismore actually doing something in motorsport. And yeah, for the whole, I mean, Lismore's pretty full of bogans, as you can imagine. So we all follow Bathurst. And to have
and so they were wrapped for you to be racing at the time.
Yeah,
and
have a bogan representative in the Bathurst 1000 was cool. But yeah, look, I mean, going to the shops and you're getting asked about it whilst it was happening, it was pretty hard.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when I first got asked, I was, to drive in September 2nd at 8 a.m.
So you were secured essentially in your head and Barry and Gary's head way well before it, and then it turns up and then you're not allowed to race.
I was driving and I had my gear ready to go the week before the event.
Who was the team of Dream Racing back then?
So Cameron Fisher was the brains.
Yep.
Oh, do you mean drivers?
Oh, you can tell the whole team.
Yeah, right. Well, Cameron Fisher was the brains. Frank Meza was the engineer.
Yep.
And then you had Craig, who was driver, George driver.
Yep.
Bowie, Kim Jane, and Neil. We all sort of just had our own jobs and own roles in the whole thing. So yeah, it was a very good team, and they had American out there as well who helped out, but he was from oval racing, so he didn't really help too much with the whole circuit racing setup. So Cam Fisher was really the brain behind that, and we had a really good weekend. But from that round onwards, we were probably the fastest everywhere we went.
Yep.
We just kept having mechanicals. I think I ended up having 5 mechanical DNFs that year and lost championship. So
yeah, right. Is that because those parts are built to be replaced quickly though in those cars?
They weren't built for a 16-year-old Nathan to be driving them. So I think I definitely test them to their limits.
Yeah.
There was a lot of times where I just couldn't brake as late as I wanted to. So I just, instead of blipping, just jam it into gear and make the rears lock and pull it up faster.
Were you flat shifting in those cars?
No flat shifting.
Okay.
No. So yeah, you can control, because you left foot brake, you control how much of a blip you give it. So I was just sort of blipping it less and less, trying to make it pull up faster. And then back then, the brake biases were different, brake master cylinders were different.
So it's changed since then.
A lot. Okay. Yeah, the cars back then were very hard drive, very hard drive, and they weren't made to be going fast. When the cars first came into the country, they were doing 220s at Bathurst. Mm-hmm. Now we're doing 210s and looking to break 209, hopefully next time. But
right.
So it's the cars have kept the whole spec the same. We just had a few small improvements, like we've got a Detroit locker in the rear end now, which is stronger. Still same clutch and gearbox. But we've fixed the braking of the cars, which takes a load off of the clutch and the gearbox, because what used to happen was you'd hit the brakes after about 4 or 5 laps in a race and the rears just lock up because the fronts would go just straight to mush. So the fronts would having that much temperature go through them and they weren't getting cool enough that they'll boil all brake fluid in them. So you basically just after a while just pulling up off the rear brakes.
And you couldn't change the brake bias mid-race or anything?
You could, but
you
maxed it out.
Yeah, okay.
So, and there was no point. If you just kept winding back, then you just keep boiling the rears and then you'd just have no brakes after a while. So
what was it like trying to... I've seen you race at Eastern Creek, both categories, S5... Well, you technically started with Valvoline with both cars. Yep. What was it like trying to jump from one car to the next, though, trying to get your head around it? You did pretty well to do it.
Look, that was very hard.
What's the S5000 like to drive?
Yeah, no, different. It was a great. I mean, they're a great car drive. Now we've done a bit of work with the shock package on them, and they're very nice to drive. Before they were just way too loose. They you'd turn in, you'd just crack a little bit of steering lock on with a bit of brake pressure, it'd snap on you. You correct it, then you have understeer, then you try and touch throttle and snap again.
This is S5000?
Yeah, all the time. Just every single corner will just do the same thing. And then you get to high speed and they want you to bomb it in at 260k an hour and the thing's trying to step around and send you around backwards.
They're on a hard tyre, aren't they, those?
Yeah. So they gave you no feel. But now we've done this shock change to them at the Gold Coast and the cars will just come alive. You can actually really hustle it and drive it.
Yeah.
And it cops it. So it's like a race car now.
So the shock changes actually help the cars develop in a way.
Yeah. So basically we had the shocks set up for F3 standards. So we basically copied the mapping of an F3 shock with a bit more. I think we just used more pressure to counteract the extra weight we have from the V8 engine in the back of it.
Yeah.
So the new shocks now are set up specifically for S5000 900 kilo race car spec. So the rear shock's basically just made a night and day difference. We're doing a few things with tyres and push rod and stuff like that to try and make them even better again. And obviously moving around with the whole push to pass stuff.
There's a push to pass thing. Is that new, or is that?
Yeah, that was new for the Gold Coast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, that's just the S5000 is basically just like a video game. You can turn up and down the wick whenever you want to, and you know you can change your throttle. You can change your maximum throttle. Only Stiffy from GRM can do it.
Yeah.
Or Rog from Innovate Engines can do it. And you basically just plug into the ECU, tell the car you're not allowed to go past 91%, and all of a sudden you put your foot for 100% throttle and just goes 91% instead. So
does GRM look after most of those cars and then they send out to the teams, or do they? How does that series work? Because it's still trying to find its feet. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a very hard series to get going because it's so competitive and the cars have been so hard driving in the past.
Yep.
Now I think the car's getting better to drive. You're going to have more people come through. And, you know, the person in putting, I mean, Jimmy Golding's come straight into supercars and he's, you know,
killing it.
Probably one of the top guys you'd rank. And S5000's all he's really done for the last 2 years. So, yeah, I mean, it shows. I mean, the category, it's got all the talent in it, and it's got the cars are hard to drive, and it just sort of needs a bit of an unbroken year. This is the first year it's had unbroken. Even then, it still had a few complications throughout the year, but you know it is still pretty popular. So hopefully next year we can just go strength to strength, all rounds, no problems, and big.
There's
fields.
like 21 cars at Adelaide, isn't there, or something like that?
No,
like
15.
15.
So we only have 18 cars built. And I think only 16 of them can race, and I think 2 are privately owned.
Yep.
So we've got all cars except for 1 racing, and 1's just sitting at the workshop, just collecting dust for now.
Yep.
But we can easily get it ready to go. All the cars, we can. I think GRM can do a deal where they service cars in between rounds. Don't quote me on it. But I'm fairly sure we can. We service them and send them to you, and you race on the weekends. So
do you mechanic on all the cars when you're working at GRM? Like, do you work on the TCRs and everything?
When I first started, I was on my S5000.
Yep.
Now I've moved to Trans Am.
Okay.
Because Trans Am is basically just a lot busier. You know, the S5000 very easy to maintain, very easy for a race car. When you start bending stuff, that's when they start to become a bit of a pain.
And expensive.
It's expensive. But when the cars have all 4 wheels and they roll out of the truck how they went into it, they're very easy to maintain and they require very little maintenance, and they're actually very cheap to run, believe it or not. So, I mean, they look after all the oils and everything. The cars, you could easily turn the wick up and make them, 8-9 seconds a lap faster if you wanted to, just for an extra 40-50 grand. But that's not really what they're about. The cars are about being hard to drive, being fast, and that Gary and Barry, when they built the series, didn't want it to be the fastest series in Australia. Well, yes, they did. They wanted it to be the hardest to drive in Australia. Not you can easily make a Formula 1 type series where the cars will drive themselves and go really quick, but there's no real fun in that. This is a category made to be its own.
So it was built off a bit of nostalgia, like those old Formula 5000s, to make them hard to drive and experienced drivers to come through and have a crack.
Exactly. And really, you can get some young blokes as well come through the series and really prove themselves. I mean, if you can hustle an S5000, really, you can hustle anything. Really, they're
Does any of the Formula Ford stuff help you with the S5000 from memory, or not really?
The Formula Ford was I mean, you need to do Formula Ford to really learn. You do see a lot of Formula Ford guys who've come into it have actually been at the front. I mean,
Jude and stuff, and Ben and Barguana.
For Jude to come straight in and be at the front, he's doing pretty well. So I mean, the Formula Ford definitely does help. Granted, if I hop back in a Formula Ford now, I'd feel like I'm going 5K an hour compared to an S5000, but it definitely does. I mean, the brake trace is the same, throttle trace is the same. Everything's all the same in Formula Ford, and they do give you the high-speed moving sensation as well, Formula Ford, that S5000 does. S5000, though, is a bit more brutal. If it moves at high speed, you're going for a ride. You're not just sort of hanging on to it and drifting along. You're going for a big ride. Yeah. If it starts to move on you. But, I mean, the Formula Ford was it's hands down the best thing I've driven, and it's helped me a lot throughout everything.
I know you've been asked this for a while, but what happened with the whole Bathurst scenario? I know you've had a few interviews on it now, but
that's right.
What was that? What was it like for like you had all this like momentum build up, and Barry were 100% behind you, and literally you can talk to anyone on the internet. They were like, Nathan Herne needs a supercar license. What for you kind of held you back, and what was like the whole feeling leading up to that event?
It was just politics to help me back, really. Only way to say it.
Yep.
Australia's...
Could you get in a supercar now though? Like, what's the whole go?
Still don't know.
You still don't know?
Yeah.
Really?
So I've been told I have a super license.
Yeah.
Although every time I've tried, nothing's really come of it.
Yeah.
It's a very, very strange ordeal, the whole thing.
Yeah.
So I understand a little bit more than what I'm leaning on to.
Yeah.
But I don't really want.
So technically, you need to race something with a super in it to race supercars. Is that how it works?
Yeah.
Even though you've dominated Trans Am for God knows how many races.
Is that what they expect of everyone? Like Super Utes, you have to do Super 3, Super 2 to go there?
Yeah.
Somewhat, yeah. So basically, you want to go Super 2 if you want to go supercars.
Yep.
It's a shame because, I don't really have the money to throw a house away to drive a race car for a year. But the whole 2020 ordeal was very, very strange. It was hard to... I was still living in Lismore, which I think the best thing about living in Melbourne is at least no one knows me, so I can sort of go somewhere and cruise along, where in Lismore it was pretty heavily followed because, I was really the only bloke from Lismore actually doing something in motorsport. And for the whole... Lismore's pretty full of bogans, as you can imagine. So we all follow Bathurst, and to have
and so they were wrapped for you to be racing at the time.
Yeah, and have a bogan representative in the Bathurst 1000 was cool. But look, going to the shops and you're getting asked about it whilst it was happening, it was pretty hard. Yeah. I remember when I first got asked, I was to drive in September 2nd at 8 a.m.
So you were secured essentially in your head and Barry and Gary's head way well before it, and then it turns up and then you're not allowed to race.
I was driving and I had my gear ready to go the week before the event.
Yeah.
And on the Sunday, the Friday before, I got told I wasn't driving.
Yep.
So that was at 8 a.m. when I was at work. I thought,
wow.
This is a long work day now, but
holy shit.
So it was it was a very, very different time of life, but I'm very glad it did happen, really, because it's given me what I've got now with Gary and Barry. And
I think it's actually me knowing you as a person anyway. It's actually, as you said, motivated you, and it's actually turned you in a way to a better driver anyway. Like, it's kind of like what Brooke says.
Got that hunger in you.
Yeah. Like with Brooke, she's like, you don't, and other people have said to myself as well, you've got this perception in your head where you've got to be doing this and that and this. Yeah. But other people are like, no, don't worry about it. You're a good driver. And I think like you've dominated in pretty much everything now. Do you know what I mean?
And you've had Marcus as your mentor because you've mentioned had issues with supercars as well and then went to NASCAR. Do people like that then, are there plans or advice given to look to the US and to NASCAR over there instead, or are you going to still fight for here?
Look, we'll see. The American stuff was very good to do, and we'll look at it, but it's very hard to make it over there. The money over there is very much similar to Australia. To try and take the next step, the deal I've got with Valvoline GRM is second to none, and really, I'd be mad to give it up unless I had something better.
Yep.
Which better doesn't really come very often. So. Yeah, to go to America, it's still very expensive, and to be on the other side of the world, even living in Melbourne, I've missed out on a lot of stuff in my family. I've got some nieces and nephews now who don't really know me too much. So, but look, it is what it is. It's life, and I've really got to, I've dedicated the last 20 years of my life to making it, so I may as well, go the extra step and maybe move over to another country. But we'll just see. I don't want to say anything because. Yeah. I learned pretty hard in 2020 when you say things generally don't happen. But look, 2020 taught me a lot of things, and one of those was never take anything granted until you're on the grid. So now I don't get excited for a race tomorrow. I haven't even thought about tomorrow until I'm lining up on the dirt, ready to go. Because I don't know. You sort of that whole experience was very hard. To sort of go through because, it's my dream as a kid growing up and I've always wanted to do it.
How old were you then? Because it was only 2020, so it's 2 years ago.
I was 18.
18.
Fresh 18.
Yeah.
So, it was very, very hard because I was 18, so you're not very, very mature really when you're 18. As much as you like to think you are, you're not. I'm still pretty immature now as it is, but back then I just I was really biting my tongue, trying not to say world's crap, blah blah. Everyone's against me. You have to just put a smile on your face, and whenever people ask you about it, back then I just sort of had to say, oh yeah, it is what it is. We're working at it, and try and be Gary and Barry, but. That was a very hard time of life to sort of get through it all, and then I had my mates sort of, as mates do, giving me shit about it. They'll always say, "Oh, you're not good enough to race supercars, mate. You're not driving today to whatever mate's house we're going to with the motorbikes on the back."
Yep.
So you'd always at the end of the day, I sort of needed that to sort of take it as a bit of a joke and not take it to heart so much.
You at least got to test the car, didn't you?
Yeah, done 2-day tests.
Oh, well, see, it's not technically the end of it. You still got to drive a main game supercar.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we put the invite out for them to come watch me test and sign me off and say I was a good driver. They said yes, and they turned it down the day before, so they weren't coming.
Yep.
And then we sent them the data saying this is my data compared to Tyler and Moff.
Yep.
And didn't even open it. So
wow.
Yeah. So it is what it is. It really is. Yeah. As you said, it's. As much as I don't want to say it, it's a bit of a motivation for me now. Yep. I want to make it more than ever, and I'm not stopping anymore.
So you're making a statement on the track essentially right now when you race.
Yeah, I guess so. And I mean, Gary and Barry, they've never given up on me, so I can't really give up on them in a way.
What's it like being an ambassador for Valvoline though? Like that's pretty cool because there's the Dumsies here in Sydney, and then there's yourself, and then there's a few others. What's it like being an ambassador for that such an iconic brand? Do you know what I mean? Like Mark Martin in NASCAR had it. Do you know what I mean? Like
nearly all NASCARs have it. It is cool, and Valvoline's very good to work with. I've had some sponsors who have been very strict with everything.
Yep.
But Valvoline's been very good, and you can really get along with them as just normal people because they are. There's no egos in Valvoline. A lot of businesses are very this is the top, and you're down here. Valvoline's very very open and they sort of just cruise along and I mean I appreciate everything they do for me and I think same goes for them and it's been a good 2 years with them and it's good to have a sponsor who's really, I mean, as much as they want me to be the full package, they know I'm only 20, so they're helping me sort of move on as well. In terms of they're saying like, oh yeah, if you can do this for us, that'd be good, or do this and so it's been a very good time and they sort of walk me through a few things. Like I've done a few conferences for them with the cars and rock up with the cars to a different Valvoline stand and they tell me what I need to do and they don't say it in a way that sort of pushes me around. They sort of say like, oh yeah, if you can do this it'll be good. It's been a very good time with Valvoline and we'll see what happens in the future with them.
Yeah. What was it like before we go to like win that national championship in Trans Am first? Obviously I thought it was a fucking wicked moment, by the way, over COVID, how you did the mad burnout, which you got in trouble down the straight. That was fucking epic. That was probably the best burnout I've seen for the last 5 years or something.
The thing was, I was going to do it bigger.
You were holding back on the burnout.
Yeah, no. I was going. So why I spun out at the end, I was going to the right.
Yeah,
and I think it was Mark Crutcher.
Yeah,
one of the nicest guys in Trans Am racing.
Yeah,
he's looking at me do a burnout. He's put up beside me. I'm trying to go to the right hand side.
Yeah,
and they had the onboard camera and they moved it away. And I've gone like waving him, trying to get rid of him.
Yeah,
and he's waving back at me, thinking I'm waving to him. And I'm just like, oh mate, get out of the way, get out of the way.
Yeah.
And I've looking at him and I've looked forward. I'm like, oh shit, I'm at the corner now. So I've tried to slow it down. And as I slowed it, like lifted out throttle, she just got grip and spun around. I was like, oh no, this is embarrassing. We just ended the burnout here. And I thought, oh well, I'll do a skid on the way out. I've let go of the clutch, put my foot to full throttle, and it's sitting on limiter. I'm like, oh, this is good. Look at my mirror and there's no smoke. I'm like, oh, okay, something's starting to go here. So yeah, but no, the first championship. I mean, you just won your first championship, so I think you would know. It's before the race, you're sort of sitting there sweating bullets, thinking, why am I here? I want to go home.
It's one of the most nerve-wracking moments.
Yeah, and then look, I mean, I got to probably 4 laps from the end, and I always find with racing, as soon as I think about something, I'm toast. And I started thinking about, geez, I hope this car holds on. And then
I had that same feeling. Hey,
yeah, well, you a different reason too. You're in limp mode for half of that. But no, I was just thinking like, because I obviously had 2019 where everything that could have broken did break on my car. And yeah, I was just thinking, Jesus, this car better hold on. And then it held on and lit her up at the end, and you beauty.
Did Gary and Barry put you to the Stang the next year? Like, was that always the plan, or was...
No, so that actually came about because I was working in a workshop on the S5000. Barry said something about, we're thinking about going Trans Am next year. And I was like, okay, can I drive for you? And then he's like, oh, yeah, you can if you want. And he's like, I thought you were happy with a dream. I was like, yeah, well, I'm here, so I want to learn about Trans Am, so I want to be underneath Trans Am cars. And so I got the drive. So that was how that all started. I was very disappointed when they said we're going Mustangs.
So you didn't want to go the Mustang? No. I think it's the best looking car on the grid.
Yeah, but there's so many of them. Like, too much of a good thing isn't a good thing.
So you want to be different when you're out there in a way.
Yeah. The Dodge was good because it was different, you know, and I had a lot of people who followed me just because I was Dodge. And
really?
Yeah, even in America when I went over there.
They were asking you why you went into Dodge.
Yeah, well, Mark Miller, he's pretty big name in America.
Yeah.
He's like, I used to watch you all the time. He's like, then you went to Mustang, I stopped watching. I was like, okay, thanks.
Want to hear more? Each week we will share the hottest clips from our guest interviews on YouTube. But to hear the full episode, make sure to subscribe or follow us on your favourite podcast platform.